What if I told you that one Jedi Master created the most dangerous lightsaber form in the galaxy, a technique so powerful it could cut through the dark side itself, yet so risky it would ultimately lead to his own downfall? Today, we're diving deep into the tragic brilliance of Mace Windu, the Jedi who walked the razor's edge between light and dark, and how his greatest strength became his fatal weakness. Mace Windu wasn't your typical Jedi Master. While most Jedi sought balance and peace, Windu understood something fundamental about the nature of the Sith. You can't defeat absolute darkness with pure light. You need something more aggressive. Born on the harsh world of Harun Kal, Windu grew up surrounded by conflict. This wasn't the serene temples of Coruscant. This was a world where survival meant embracing controlled aggression. And it was here that the seeds of his revolutionary combat philosophy were planted. When Windu joined the Jedi Order, he quickly distinguished himself, not just as a powerful Force user, but as a tactical genius who questioned everything. He studied every lightsaber form, mastered political strategy, and most importantly, he studied the Sith, not just their history, but their psychology, their strengths, and critically, their weaknesses. The traditional Jedi approach to combat was defensive, reactive. Form 3, Soresu, was about deflection and patience. But Windu realized something crucial. Against an enemy that feeds on aggression and hatred, defense alone wasn't enough. Sometimes, to defeat a monster, you had to become something monstrous yourself. Enter Form 7th, Varpad. Windu didn't just modify an existing lightsaber form, he revolutionized combat itself. Varpad was based on an ancient Form 7 variant called Juyo, but Windu transformed it into something unprecedented in Jedi history. Here's where it gets fascinating. Varpad wasn't just a fighting technique, it was a philosophical breakthrough. The form worked by channeling the user's inner darkness, their aggression, even their enjoyment of combat, and turning it into a weapon against dark side users. Think about the tactical genius of this. Sith draw power from negative emotions, anger, hatred, fear. But when facing a Varpad practitioner, their dark side energy was actually turned against them. It was like fighting a mirror, one that reflected their own power back at them, but purified through Jedi discipline. The form required incredible mental fortitude. Practitioners had to walk right up to the edge of the dark side without falling in. They had to embrace their capacity for violence while maintaining their moral center. It was psychological warfare at the highest level. Only 2 Jedi in history truly mastered Varpad, Mace Windu and his apprentice Depa Billaba. Even the Jedi Council was wary of the form. They recognized its effectiveness, but they also understood its danger. Varpad demanded that its user dance with darkness, and not everyone had the spiritual strength to lead that dance. Varpad's effectiveness against Sith wasn't theoretical. It was proven in combat. Repeatedly. When Windu faced dark side users, he didn't just defeat them, he overwhelmed them, in ways they couldn't comprehend. The psychological impact was devastating. Sith were used to facing Jedi who suppressed their emotions, who fought with restraint. But Varpad practitioners fought with controlled fury, channeling intensity that matched or even exceeded their dark side opponents, while remaining centered in the light. This created a feedback loop that Sith couldn't break. Their attacks fueled the Varpad users' responses, which in turn disrupted their own connection to the dark side. It was like trying to fight quicksand. The harder they struggled, the deeper they sank. But here's the truly brilliant part. Varpad wasn't just about individual combat. Windu developed it as part of a broader strategy for the inevitable return of the Sith. He understood that the Jedi Order's traditional methods, developed during centuries of peace, wouldn't be sufficient against enemies who had spent 1,000 years perfecting their hatred. The form also had practical advantages in lightsaber combat. Its unpredictable, aggressive patterns were nearly impossible to counter with traditional forms. Where other styles had recognized sequences and defensive positions, Varpad was controlled chaos, beautiful, deadly, and utterly unpredictable. Windu's purple lightsaber became legendary, not just for its unique color, but for the way he wielded it. That blade cut through Sith defenses like they were made of paper, because in a very real sense, Varpad rendered traditional dark side combat techniques obsolete. But every perfect weapon has a weakness, and Varpad's weakness was built into its very nature. The same qualities that made it devastatingly effective against Sith also made it incredibly dangerous to its practitioners. The form required its users to embrace their capacity for darkness while maintaining perfect self-control. It was like walking a tightrope over an abyss. One moment of lost balance, one instant of letting the darkness take control, and the practitioner would fall completely. This is exactly what happened to Depa Billaba during the Clone Wars. Sent to her homeworld to deal with a conflict, she was exposed to prolonged violence and trauma. The darkness she channeled through Varpad began to consume her, and she fell to the dark side temporarily, becoming everything the Council had feared about Form 7. For Windu, the danger was different, but equally real. His mastery of Varpad made him incredibly effective, but it also isolated him within the Jedi Order. Other masters respected his skill, but were uncomfortable with his methods. Even Yoda, who supported Windu, harbored concerns about the path he was walking. This isolation had practical consequences. When the Clone Wars began, and Windu found himself in a leadership position, his aggressive approach to problems sometimes put him at odds with other Jedi. His willingness to use harsh methods while effective created political complications that would eventually prove fatal. The deeper flaw, though, was philosophical. Varpad worked by using darkness as a tool, but tools have a way of shaping their users. While Windu never fell to the dark side, his constant exposure to its power influenced his decision-making in subtle ways. He became more willing to use extreme measures, more comfortable with moral ambiguity. When Windu finally faced Palpatine in the Chancellor's office, it was the ultimate test of everything he'd built his combat philosophy around. Here was the most powerful Sith Lord in 1,000 years, the architect of the Republic's destruction, and Windu had him. The lightsaber duel was everything Varpad was designed for. Palpatine's incredible dark side power, his lightning-fast blade work, his manipulation of fear and anger, all of it was turned against him by Windu's revolutionary technique. For the first time in the saga, we saw a Sith Lord not just defeated, but completely dominated in lightsaber combat. But here's where Windu's greatest strength became his fatal weakness. His mastery of Varpad, his willingness to embrace necessary darkness, led him to a moment of perfect tactical clarity. Palpatine was too dangerous to be left alive. The Senate would never convict him. He was too powerful to imprison, and his influence was too vast to contain. So Windu made the logical choice, the choice that Varpad had trained him to make. He decided to execute a helpless prisoner, abandoning the Jedi Code in favor of practical necessity. And in that moment of moral compromise, he created the exact opening Palpatine had been waiting for. Anakin's arrival wasn't coincidence. It was orchestrated. Palpatine knew exactly how Windu would react, because he understood the fundamental weakness built into Varpad. The form's reliance on controlled darkness made its practitioners predictable. In one crucial way, when faced with impossible choices, they would choose the darker path, if it seemed more effective. Mace Windu created the perfect weapon against the Sith, and in doing so, he created the perfect trap for himself. Varpad was a brilliant solution to the problem of fighting dark side users, but it came with a price that ultimately proved too high. His story is a perfect tragedy, a man whose greatest strengths led directly to his downfall, whose revolutionary techniques were undone by their own success. Windu walked the line between light and dark better than any Jedi in history, but in the end, that line proved to be exactly where his enemies needed him to be. The lesson isn't that Windu was wrong. The galaxy needed someone willing to make the hard choices, to develop the weapons necessary to fight the darkness. But his fate reminds us that every tool changes the person who wields it. And sometimes the price of victory is higher than we realize, until it's too late. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Mace Windu's tragic brilliance, make sure to like and subscribe for more Star Wars character analysis. What other Jedi do you think deserves this kind of deep dive? Let me know in the comments below.